Over 24 hours later, we can finally log into this hot piece of steamy garbage.
Jawa is the #1 online gaming marketplace to buy and sell new and used gaming gear and get awesome custom PCs at amazing prices. Jawa's mission is to be the community where great gaming gear is sold at reasonable prices by putting the market in the hands of gamers by building the best place for you to discuss, buy, and sell your PC gear. Jawa is also proud of their GPU and CPU buying program, where Jawa will make you a direct offer on your used CPUs and GPUs to help immediately offset the cost of your new hardware. Simply click on the Get an Offer button and see an instant offer on your components. Jawa's buyer and seller protection policies ensure safe and reliable transactions, while verified sellers offer an increased buying experience through pre-vetted sellers so you can shop with peace of mind. To get started browsing amazing deals and to see all that Jawa has to offer from enthusiasts just like you, follow the sponsored link in the description below.
I'm gonna age myself. I have been playing Flight Sim since it was wireframe. We're going back to, I wanna say 1980, the first half of 1980. I can't remember. It was on floppy disks and stuff. Phil can put it up. I have literally played every iteration of Flight Sim that has existed. Flight Sim 10, in my opinion, was the pinnacle. The amount of third-party support, the amount of realism. Let's not get into the debate of Flight Sim versus X-Plane, okay? X-Plane is actually the government-approved one when it comes to being a simulator correct with physics and stuff with certain hardware add-ons when it comes to like flight training and stuff. But when it comes to like home simulation and stuff, I feel like Flight Sim 10 was the pinnacle. So when Flight Sim 2020 came out, the realism in terms of the graphics and stuff was, we were all super excited. And then we were all let down by the realization that it didn't have anywhere near the level of quote unquote realism or expansion or customization or third-party support that we were used to with Flight Sim 10, which realistically had been out since 2006, I believe. So when you have 14 years of support, obviously you're not gonna get that right away. So fast forward now to, well, we're a day after launch on this because of the fact that it came out November 19th, but it took us until November 20th to be able to log in. There's problem number one. Problem number two is the fact that we're having a hard time here really identifying the differences between 2020 and 2024. So we'll get into that here in a moment. But first we want to talk about what's actually listed as what's different. We're going to talk about some of the specs and the kind of requirement that you might need to run this, because it's a little different than what you kind of would think when it comes to this simulator and the type of hardware that you would need for it. Like X3D CPUs are actually not really that beneficial for this particular title. So let's talk about what's supposedly different between 20 and 24. So if you look at the frequently asked questions of 2024, it says one of the biggest priorities for Microsoft Flight Simulator 24 is to improve the simulator's data management. One of the major changes of the simulator's architecture being made is in cloud streaming to help ensure the client becomes thin. So what that means, it's utilizing a lot of live data acquisition as you're flying and stuff. So what it means by keeping the client thin, it means let's not store all of that data on your machine. So this is where your internet connection becomes very important, because if you have a very poor internet connection and it's trying to live stream in that data as you're playing, even us with having a gigabit here at the studio, when we first logged into the game, it was just like, there were like 3 polygons in terms of the ground because the textures hadn't loaded yet, because they didn't even start to load until you load the game. So first requirement is going to be a good internet connection. And what sucks about that is the fact that even if you don't care about the multiplayer aspect of multiplayer aspect of the simulator, I really should call it a game. It really is a game. Then that sucks because you'd want to just play it locally on your machine, maybe fly around and be like, oh look, there's my house, because it has so much real world data. You could pinpoint and find your house in this game. But because of the fact that it's bringing in that information live and it's not storing it on your machine, means that your internet connection is very important. It also means there's no such thing as an offline mode. You have to play this connected to the internet. You have to play it through their servers. And that's why we had the last day of unable to connect, because everyone was trying to connect to it, which crashed their login and authentication servers. And here we are now a day later where we can finally get in. It says when users load into the system, only the textures, meshes, and map data that they need will be downloaded to avoid unnecessary bandwidth and disk space usage. This will keep the minimum specifications of the sim as low as it is now, and will also reduce update load times. The development team is improving every aspect of the simulator. Improved multi-threading to improve performance. It's funny, that's something we've been seeing since Flight Sim X, or Flight Sim 10, technically it was 10. Because back then, dual core was all you got. Like, dual core CPUs, like Core 2 Duo and all that, and Pentium D were new. So it only used one thread. And there was a massive amount of third-party modifications that people were making to like config files and actual like files of the game to try and utilize that second thread, but it didn't do a great job. So it's just funny that in 2024, we're still seeing this multi-threading enhancement stuff being talked about. Like, this just feels antiquated in terms of being even something to mention. Faster download, load, and installation speeds. This is Microsoft we're talking about here. There's nothing fast about any of their download or installation speeds. Improved aerodynamics and physics, improved aircraft systems, new failure and wear and tear system. The wear and tear system is gonna be kind of neat, I think. Deeper and wider avionics, cockpit tablet available by default, world vertical obstacles, worldwide oil rigs. The only major difference that we've been able to find so far as we move into discussing 2024, if you already own 2020, is it doesn't feel like, it doesn't even look like anything's really changed, except for they've spent a lot of time on the ground, getting things on the ground sort of built up. Fun fact, bridges are still solid. You still cannot fly under a bridge, unless it's a specific scenery pack that includes that bridge. Otherwise, just world-generated bridges based on the topography data that they get from Google Maps. Bridges are still solid block walls going over water, which is very disappointing. Even Flight Sim 10 didn't have that problem. Let's talk about the system specs. So the minimum spec is Windows 10 with the latest update, DX12, a Ryzen 2600X or a Core i7 6800K. Those are obviously pretty old at this point. An RX 5700 or a GeForce GTX 970. I think if you have these specs, honestly, guys, you're not gonna have a great experience, to be honest. Anyway, 4 gigabytes of VRAM, 16 gigabytes of system RAM, 50 gigabytes of storage. So the 50 gigabytes of hard drive space, obviously that's just the requisites for like the main files of the game. Clearly they're streaming the region that you're flying in to get that live data. Phil is telling me he did a down, so you can go in there and actually tell it an area you want it to download all the data and save it locally, which if you're gonna always be flying in the same area because you just have an area you like to fly in, that might be recommended. It'll take a long time, but because then it won't have to fetch any of that data from the server, and it would probably, textures would pop in and load in faster. Okay, moving on to recommended specs. Windows is all the same, DX12 obviously, so 2700X or a 10700K. So that's a big jump from 6800K to a 10700K. What's interesting is the jump for AMD only goes from 2600X to 2700X. So it's a bigger jump for Intel than AMD, which I thought's odd. 5700 XT or an RTX 2080, 8 gigabytes of VRAM, 32 gigabytes of system RAM. So you're gonna see some big system RAM requirements and recommendations here. Same 50 gigabytes of storage. Or the ideal spec, which is what we've kind of done here or tried to do here, Ryzen 9 7900X or Intel 14700K, 7900 XT or a GeForce RTX 4080. And that might be the highest GPU spec of any game so far as an ideal spec. 12 gigabytes of VRAM, 64 gigabytes of system RAM, and 50 gigabytes of storage. So let's talk about the system right here. This is the same NZXT system that we were sent when we did the Outlaws video. And I figured this would be an interesting one because we technically don't meet the CPU ideal spec because this is a 7800X3D, not a 7900X. So we have 2 less cores and 4 less threads and a slower chiplet because of the fact that it's utilizing the 3D V-cache of the first gen 3D V-cache, which has the lower speeds. 9800X3D would probably be a big uplift versus this when it comes to this test. The reason why it's recommending like a 7900X and above is because of the fact that if it's truly multi-threading, a lot of the stuff that's happening with the world sim, like the cars and the people and the animals and all that, more threads will be beneficial than more cache. So it'll be interesting to see how our 7800X3D does. We have 4 sticks of 16 gigabytes of RAM, so we got 64 gigabytes of G.Skill running at 6,000 megatransfers right now. And we have an RTX 4090. So we exceed, and we have a 2 terabyte SSD in here, an NVMe SSD, Gen 4, I believe. Anyway, it exceeds the ideal requirements for everything except, well, it doesn't exceed the RAM either, but or the CPU. So yeah, a little shameless plug right there for NZXT helping sponsor today's video. So you guys can check out the link below if you're looking for a pre-built system or components. They sell components as well. Clearly this one meets the spec. Hopefully the 7800X3D isn't necessarily a problem. Okay, one other thing I want to mention too regarding the storage though. We were just talking about the fact that 16 gigabytes of that 50 gigabytes is actually the cache that is stored when it comes to the scenery and area for the area that you've most recently flown. So again, if you're flying the same area all the time, it should keep that in the cache until you fly to a new area or load a new area, then it will replace that cache with the newest scenery data. So there you go. One of the major things that's different though is like missions and stuff. Like you're supposed to be able to do firefighting, like look, rescue missions, right? We got a sinking oil tanker here. There's gonna be putting an HVAC system on top, like this right here, on top of like the building in Los Angeles. So some military missions, a lot of extra stuff. Stuff, to be quite honest, they could have just baked into 2020 through expansions, which would have been cheaper than buying a whole new version of the game. But anyway, I digress. I know we've done a lot of talking, haven't even showed anything with the game yet. So let me take that down for a second. Let's start. Okay, let's talk about the marketplace. The marketplace is most arguably, I think, people's favorite area of flight sim. It's like, let's find some new sim, like some new scenery. Let's find some new aircraft. Let's find some cool stuff. But it's coming soon. That is like, coming soon TM is like anything freaking Microsoft. I'm telling you. So it's not even ready yet. Okay, well, there's a reason why, if you look at the Steam rating on this, it is overwhelmingly negative because of crap like this. I think, honestly, it's the severely overwhelmingly negative because all the people in the first 24 hours couldn't get into the game. So you bought something and you couldn't even use it. I don't know the controls or anything. Let's just see. How do you stop this thing? Ah! Whoa. Wait. Oh! Nailed it. The GPU utilization is actually pretty good, but we're in a very confined little mission, so I don't think it's loading a whole lot around us, which will help, but we've noticed like some pretty low GPU util at some points. We'll go to like a major city like LAX or something here in a moment. See the textures loading in? That's obviously what I'm talking about. See, these are not loaded in yet, but watch, though they're all, there they go, they're starting to come in. I know the glide slope. I'm trying here, I'm full stick back. Bandwidth too low. No, my plane too low. Oh my God, I saved that. I just touched, oh shit, no scare. Center line, center line, center line. It would probably help if I knew what the brake buttons and air spoilers. All right, this is considered the world's most dangerous landing. As you can see, it's very high altitude here in the mountains. Oh, that's legit happened. Whoa. We did it! Why did it not crash? Why did it not?
Yeah.
Oh. So the FPS is actually not as bad as I was expecting it to be honest. But then again, we are just in these missions. So the missions and stuff in this, I think, are gonna be kind of fun. But free flight, this is what like I think 99% of the people do, is they get bored of the missions and then they go into free flight. And they're like, I wanna fly around my home. So let's do that. Let's fly at SoCal right now, shall we? So one other thing to mention here is any of the like premium, so if you have Premium Deluxe on 2024, any of your like Deluxe Edition stuff on 2020 will carry over to 2024. Gotta do the Thunderbolt, I'm sorry. I just gotta. So now you can see the loading time and things are still loading in the map. It's gonna be a lot slower than the missions because now this is loading like an entire region. So I've said let's go a while ago and it's still loading. So this is where the system requirements are definitely gonna come in. This is where I think having the faster and more threads of the CPU will come in. We will check the multi-threading aspect and you can see it's much more stuttery. Oh crap, does anyone know how to push back? What did I do? Oh, I didn't click ready to fly. Oh, do the FPS. Okay, so this is what we're talking about with the util. The util is very bad in free flight. In the missions, it's good because it's almost like loading a game within the game. It's like a mini game. But look at the util. 42%, 35%, this is CPU. GPU is very low util. So, and then as you can see, we're only getting FPS in the, ooh. It's using every core, as you can see, and it's only in the 30s to 40s. So this is just, unfortunately, I think, the nature of this simulator, right? I have my dive brakes on. Why? Okay, well this will help me from going too fast, I guess. My gear's down, my freaking brakes are on. Yeah, even up here, up high, the util is just bad. So as you can see, the util is complete garbage right now. This is what's sad about this. It's okay up here flying around, but still 30s on the FPS? Yeah, this util, it's very consistently in like the 40s. That's what's sort of sad about this. Los Angeles Kings.
Sick dead zones.
That's not where I went to go through. I wanted to just knife edge through it, but then it was like, So I guess as long as you fly from high altitude and you don't care about getting down low to it, then it's not like terrible. It seems like the higher we get, it gets a little better. So here I am right here flying into Long Beach. Almost looks like I'm going on an attack run. This is so cool though, how you can pause the sim and like fly around your aircraft. Anyway, so here is the port of Long Beach. I can't believe we still have this problem where we continue to have random trees just popping out of container ships and such. And not to mention, it can't tell the difference between like what was a ship and what was ground, like the land. So as you can see, we still have a bridge that is nothing more than a solid block wall. The dock is underwater, the boat is on top of the dock, which is weird. Here's another cruise ship. This one actually looks a little better, I guess. So has trees growing out of the side of it. The Iowa, man, like they just can't do the Iowa any freaking favors here. Like, look at this.
Why is there a hole in it?
Apparently that part is underwater. Yeah, so this is the USS Iowa. Still looks like garbage. So sad. Oh wait, no, this one's doing a wheelie. Wait, it's moving.
Wait, what?
What is happening to this? What?
What? That's not how that works.
It literally was correct,
Yeah.
and I pointed it out, and then it's like, no. So I commented about earlier in this video about how container ships apparently are beaching themselves in this game, just like in real life. All right, let's talk about Flight Sim here real quick, 2024. Ultimately, it does not feel like anything major above 2020. Anything that they've talked about as an improvement in this, I think they could have implemented in 2020. Clearly, it's not taking full advantage of the hardware that's in here. I guess I could go back to LA real quick and try dropping, like in the game, dropping the settings down and see if we see anything improve. I don't think we necessarily will though, because we're not seeing full util of our hardware as it is. So dropping settings would probably honestly just drop our util with everything staying the same. That's my expectation here anyway. So I just want to do that one more time. And it's been kind of a long video, but this is like the hot thing right now. Everyone is excited for, but I feel like the excitement might have been a little bit premature, just what we've already experienced with 2020. 2020 was quite honestly, for most people, the biggest letdown yet regarding Flight Sim. DLSS frame gen, will that help? I don't know, let's just see. So that's 100 FPS right there. Look at the rotors. Dude, the FPS actually greatly improved by turning on frame gen. Let's also talk about the fact that it's only DLSS implementation for frame gen and not FSR or anything else, or like XeSS or any of that stuff. So RIP AMD users and Intel users, I guess. Yeah, even though it's showing quite a bit less FPS and frame gen being on, it really doesn't feel any different. I'm noticing less trees and stuff though now.
Yeah, and more pop in.
Right, a lot more pop in. But look at the GPU util. Like that's what I was saying. Like I don't feel like the settings are gonna help us a lot. We still have a lot of scenery popping in. Like if you look down here, like things are starting to, the textures are very bad in terms of the amount of polygons and stuff, but it's starting to improve. But it's doing that thing where it's like loading in the data as we play, right? But yeah, one of the major differences right here is the amount of foliage and stuff. So let me go back up one. And util didn't really change. It went up a couple %.
But now there's less pop in.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've seen enough. Having waited 4 years from 2020 for 2024 to come out, I think we honestly expected more. I think if you were to put this side by side with 2020 and not tell anyone which one they're on. I think people would have a hard time determining which version they're on. Marketplace isn't even live yet. Now I know we experienced some of that with 2020, but at least it had something. It did launch with the game. Didn't have a lot of content, but it had some stuff. This feels like another rushed, let's just get it out. And it was even delayed. That's the craziest part. This was delayed. So what would it have been like a month or two ago? It's sad. It is hardly worth the money currently. It definitely feels like a quote unquote expansion, mostly because of the activities. You did have some of those activities in 2020. There was like VIP helicopter flights and stuff that you could do. There was a career mode. If I remember correctly, there was a career mode. It's just a real hard sell on this one. It's unfortunate that it's kind of a hot mess. I miss the old days of like FSX. If you're really looking for if you're watching this going, man, I maybe you want to work on getting a PPL or a private pilot's license and you want to start kind of plucking around and learn something about aviation, this is not it. This is not it at all. That's X-Plane. X-Plane is the simulator that people use for truly learning aircraft and flight dynamics and all that stuff. Apparently, the physics in that is good enough to where the FAA actually recognizes it as a true learning tool. The one thing I will say about this, with the physics improvements and stuff, is we have screwed around with 2020 a bunch by doing crazy things. This is the first time I ever experienced a wingtip stall. So it's kind of nice to see that there were some improvements there. But I had never experienced a wingtip stall like I did when I was flying into the Himalayas there. So it's kind of nice to see that they're getting better at that. It really is still a simcade. Simcade means it's a simulation arcade game. That's really all it is. It's unfortunate. It's very expensive. And I think it deserves its overwhelmingly negative reviews, responses that you're seeing on Steam. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm curious if any of you have bought it. Were you able to get in on day one? We were able to for a minute. And then once we logged out, we could not get back in, and even kept giving us notifications that the servers were down, and then it was like infinite login loop in the queue. We were just really fortunate that it worked today so we could put this video out there. I would highly, highly recommend waiting for it to go on sale if you're considering it. I would also highly recommend that you keep your expectations to a low. That way you're not super disappointed when you get in there and realize that the FPS is terrible. And when I say terrible, I'm only looking for 60, guys. I'm only looking for a consistent locked 60 so that we can really feel like we're in there. We just need consistent frame rate. That's all we need. And I can't tell you why the util is so bad. There's nothing that's gonna help. Like, I can overclock the GPU right now if I want. Let's see, if I overclock the GPU, let's just go extra RAM. Let's see if RAM helps. 750 megahertz overclock on the RAM, if our FPS is gonna jump. Nope. If I give it another 150 megahertz on the clock, will that help? Nope. Because the util is not. Again, the clock speed doesn't matter because our util is not there. It needs work. It needs a lot of work. Anyway, time to go, guys. Thanks for watching today's video. And again, a huge thanks to NZXT for sending us this system to do these kinds of tests on. We could have clearly gotten away with a much lesser spec system and probably gotten the same type of experience. I'm wondering where that threshold, that intersect is, where the util goes high enough to mean that our limiting factor is the hardware. But right now, ideal specs, they're a pipe dream because the game itself can't utilize the hardware. So what's the point of the ideal spec? And here's the thing, if we go into 2020 right now, it's not that much better, if better at all, than the day it launched. So why would I have any expectations for this to improve? This just seems like a money grab, that's all it was. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you later.